Hey folks, Sean here, and today what I want to talk to you about is how to ensure that your product is meeting minimum expectations with your customers to deliver the right experience. And this is a story that comes from a growing social media trend where Kias and Hyundai vehicles are being stolen and joyrided because they're missing a key anti-theft device. The anti-theft device that's missing from Hyundais and Kias is referred to as an immobilizer. It's essentially a chip that matches your car's key to your ignition. And if you don't have it, it makes your car ridiculously easy to steal. Now, this is super embarrassing for Hyundai and Kia, and one of the most embarrassing elements is that most immobilizers were rolled out to most passenger vehicles back in the 1990s, nearly 30 years ago. And what this means is that Kia and Hyundai owners were expecting it to be included as well. Pretty important feature, you might add. Really changes the experience if you don't have it. So in terms of what the usage and the inclusion of this feature looks like across other vehicles and essentially who Hyundai and Kia are competing with, over 96% of passenger vehicles have this immobilizer installed, and the vast majority of Hyundai and Kias do not, dramatically changing the ownership experience as you might imagine. So let's talk about the impact that missing this key feature causes owners of these vehicles and the company as well. So from the ownership experience, it's probably relatively obvious. Because this key anti-theft device is not included in these vehicles, they're being stolen at nearly twice the rate of the national average. And it's all over social media, so the problem will probably continue to get worse. Making matters worse, it's not really an easy thing to retrofit because they've missed this key feature and includes some hardware. So you've got tons of vehicles out on the road that all need to be fixed and are all subject to being stolen at the moment. So the whole thing's just become such a mess. Now, I'm sure that some part of the decision was in terms of cost savings, right? However, that's led to this disaster. So was it really worth it? More than likely, no. And I'm sure if they could take that decision back now, they would. But that's not, you don't really get credit for that, right? What you should be doing instead, and this is me getting around to talking about what this might mean for you and your product company and make sure, you don't wind up being or experiencing some equivalent of this disaster that Hyundai and Kia is going through, is to ensure that your product essentially has a key set of features that your customers have come to expect. Now, what do I mean when I say that? Well, this is one they're obviously expecting. Now, when people are searching whether or not to purchase a particular vehicle, I'm sure they're not asking whether or not the vehicle has an immobilizer included or anti-theft device as specific as that, right? They want to make sure that the car isn't easy to steal. That has become an expectation over the course of decades, as in it's just assumed that it will be included in most product experiences, right? So they would hope that they wouldn't necessarily need to verify that, but apparently you still might because Hondas and Kias for the most part don't include them. But that should be incorporated in a minimum set of expectations that your customer is going to get when they're using your product. Because, like I shared already, greater than 96% of vehicles have them. So if yours doesn't, that causes a potentially huge issue for you if and when that impact, like we're seeing now, really starts to come to light. So if your product is not including minimum set of features like that, it could ruin the product experience and it could cause untold amounts of brand and reputation damage, not to even include, what it's going to cost them from an insurance perspective, if there's legal action and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, so what might this look like if you have, for example, like a B2B SaaS software product? This is the equivalent of not having proper authentication, storing passwords in clear text, any of these things that can cause you significant liability if they come to light or you ultimately get exposed, right? There's a minimum set of expectations for the type of experience you need to create for your users and your customers, and it's something that they've come to expect. If you're not meeting those minimum expectations, it could be glaringly obvious that they're not going to be interested in doing business with you or purchasing your product. So that's one problem that comes out of this. Or if it ultimately comes to light that whatever it is that you've left out of that experience ultimately has caused major issues for customers and other users, then that brand and reputation damage is potentially going to affect who purchases your products in the future. Like, for example, here, which is a question I have for you, is would this issue with Hyundai and Kia prevent you from purchasing one of their cars in the future? I know it would affect my buying decision and immediately where my mind goes if they've left something like this out to try to cut costs is what else are they leaving out of the equation? Do I have all my airbags? Is the structural integrity of this vehicle sound and safe? I have other concerns if they're going to leave out something so glaringly obvious. So the lesson here is to make sure that your product includes a minimum set of features to meet expectations for your users and your customers. especially if those features are something that are very important to your users and customers, and it's something they're going to use rather frequently. Plus, if it's offered by all of your competitors, but you are missing it in your product, that's going to cause a lot of trouble for you. That could turn into the disaster that it's been for Hyundai and Kia, but more than that, it's ultimately going to potentially prevent them from purchasing or using your product because you don't have those key features. So you don't want the brand reputation, you don't want to incur anything anywhere near what Hyundai and Kia are going through. That risk is just too high. So you need to ensure what those minimum expectations are so that you can meet them in your product experience, and then you can build on them from there. Thanks for watching, and I hope you got value out of it. If you did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel so you can be notified when more content like this becomes available. And please, in the comment sections below, I'd love to hear from you in terms of whether or not Kia and Hyundai leaving out this key feature would impact your decision whether or not to buy these vehicles in the future.